Thrive is a design philosophy. What does it take for somebody to thrive, and what does it mean? And to me, thrive is to be your very best, always. When we started with the Thrive philosophy, we kind of segmented into a particular stage in life, and it is through the teenage years all the way into your career life. And the reason behind that is because it is in the teenage years when one starts deciding in a more mature way what you want to do with your life and who you're going to become. And at the same time, it's when the most happens physically, psychologically, and emotionally. I think that would be a great starting point for us to say, okay, this is when we are going to need, as people, the most tools for us to thrive. It starts with having fun. We live and breathe that, that's our first core value, and I think it's such an important one. Let them be fun for kids to use, let them be fun for teachers to be able to teach. As they move into college years, there's a lot to absorb in your college years. You're becoming this young adult not knowing anything about life, so don't lose having fun. One of our core values is make it personal. How can we transmit that through the products that we make? And when does that happen? We're not here to sell a table and a chair. Everybody can do that, but we're here to really say we can make a difference. So I wanted to make sure that as we moved forward designing products and bringing solutions into the marketplace, that there was a strong meaning and a strong impact in it. Thrive is very universal, it's very broad. There's 6 key aspects that as humans are gonna impact our outcome. It's the psychological aspect, how am I feeling? And what can I give for people to feel better? The socio-emotional aspect, which is key nowadays, not only in our learning, but also in our careers, the sense of empathy and the fact that there's more to academic performance. The intellectual aspect is my ability to have information and to learn, but also how do I apply that? The moral, we're not saying we're going to make, pop up good human beings, but is what can I do to help them make the right decisions? How can teachers help students be good people? The spiritual, there's no religious affiliation, but rather what are the elements in my life, whether it's in my learning life or in my career life, that bring peace and joy and mindfulness, with all the hecticness. All these elements are keys. It's not one or the other. It's really having all of these. I live and breathe the brand identity of our company. It starts with people showing up at 5 a.m. to a factory to build things that are going to go out for kids to learn. We want to be part of this journey as much as we can, and hopefully we create a culture of not only creating products that make a difference, but people will remember that they made a difference and we help them be that. And that is truly the core of Thrive. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our last session for today, session 7 of our spring webinar, Thrive Forward, Creating Environments for Optimal Human Development and Well-Being. Today on this session, we'll be revealing an esports center designed with the Thrive principles in mind. I'm Polly Moore. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for MooreCo, and I'll be hosting the session. And I want to welcome Alexa Feldman. She is Interior Design Coordinator for LPA Studios, and her current focus is in engaging students through design of inspirational learning environments. So Alexa's going to show us how she developed an eSport environment that helps students channel creativity and work together toward a common goal. I'm super excited about this one because it's all about the design aspect and how we can use some of the MooreCo's solutions and tools to really foster, all the principles behind our Thrive philosophy. A reminder to our audience, the questions channel is open. If you're attending live, just make sure you plug in your questions and Alexa will be happy to answer them towards the end. So I'll leave you to it. Welcome, Alexa, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Polly. I'm really excited to be here and have this opportunity. So thank you for inviting us to be a part of this conference this week. Um, I'll go ahead and get started. So I have kind of a short agenda, just a little bit of introduction about myself and LPA, and then we'll go ahead and talk design and talk about how we designed an esports facility. And then there's some time at the end for some question and answer as well. But a little bit of background on myself. As Polly mentioned, I'm an interior designer with LPA out of our San Antonio studio. I have 9 years of experience in the industry, and I've been with LPA the last 3 years. I actually started my career at a furniture dealership. I was a little burned out after college, and I knew that I wanted to still do something creative. So I landed there for a couple of years, and then I moved up to Austin and started working for a small design firm up there, and mostly did workplace and corporate design. But now my focus is mostly education design at LPA. Some of the larger clients that we've worked with recently on projects include San Antonio Independent School District, Austin Independent School District, and I've had the opportunity to help support our Dallas office recently, so I've been working with Carrollton's Farmers Branch as well. A little bit about LPA. Who are we? We have 6 studios, 4 in California and 2 in Texas, and we have 9 different practice areas with 400 employees. We have 9 integrated disciplines in-house. Almost half of our employees are women, which we're really proud of, and 41% of our staff is racially and ethnically diverse. One thing that I think makes us a little bit unique is how we focus on the design process. And I think that kind of means 2 things. First, we focus on our integrated team. I mentioned on the slide before that we've got 9 disciplines in-house, but that doesn't mean every LPA project we have the opportunity to always work with an LPA team. We're constantly working with other disciplines that are from different companies. So it's really the goal with the integrated team is to communicate early and often. You know, every discipline has kind of parameters and hurdles that they have to work through on every project. And so no one discipline gets to sort of rule the project. Everything they say goes. Design is such a malleable thing, and there's a lot of pushing and pulling that happens throughout the entire project. This slide is just an example of how we as an integrated team come together and kind of talk through and do pin-up design sessions of our design projects. Another way that we focus on the design process is really thinking about who our stakeholders are on every project. So with my education work, our stakeholders typically tend to be, district personnel, administration, principals, teachers, PE coaches, students are definitely big stakeholders for us as well as community members. And so what we try to do is do our best to give all of those stakeholders a chance to use their voice, because we understand that we need to be good stewards of the dollars that we have to work on in every project. So how do we do that? How do we give them a chance to use their voice? Well, these pictures on this slide show what we've done on some of our higher ed projects with sort of posting questions on large poster boards and letting the kids just kind of write their answers on sticky notes. This is a great way to gather a lot of information. We also host a lot of design charrettes with students and teachers. Oftentimes we'll host community meetings, and that's where we have a lot of parents that will show up, but even community members that are local to a brand new school site, for example, that want to understand how is this new school and the traffic going to impact me getting to and from my house in the morning and at 5 o'clock. So we really try to just do a deep dive of understanding the unique needs of all of our stakeholders and give them an opportunity to use their voice on the project. So a little bit about our team for this esports project. We have Kate Murrah, who is a principal with LPA, but she's also our design director for educational design. We have myself, and then we have Andrea Ceballos, who is on our interiors team in Irvine. And so when Polly actually asked us if we wanted to participate in this Thrive Forward conference, we looked at the different space types that we had available to choose from, and the one that stood out to us was esports, because we're seeing it as kind of an upcoming trend. So what is esports, you may be asking? It's basically online gaming where players play video games against one another on the internet. Some people have found a way to earn money from this actually through followers or sponsorships. They basically stream themselves playing the game and you can watch them along the way. I think it's interesting, the facts that we have on the screen show that most males tend to play video games, and that higher ed campuses are really recognizing that esports is a program that they should offer on their campuses. We've seen esports be brought up on a lot of our meetings lately, like I mentioned, specifically in like public libraries and school libraries. Recently on one of our projects in Dallas, we had an esports academy actually be a part of a new high school renovation project. And I think it's because people are starting to look at video gaming as like it's not no longer seen as something you just do in the living room with your family and friends. That's kind of how I grew up. Um, with my brother playing video games in the family room, because there's a lot of research that is pointing to strong connections with these video gamers to STEM careers. So I think people are really starting to take this a little bit more seriously. And some consistent themes that we see with esports facilities that we've designed are that they need to be flexible in nature. I think the image on the left sort of represents like one type of zone that might be in an esports facility. I think, we also need to include social spaces where we can have sort of a larger group gathering. We also see that wired connections are really important, and just having access to them, especially as technology evolves. And what we hear on our projects all the time is that you can't have too many connection options, honestly. I think large display monitors, really offer more of a community and group type setting, kind of for those like large group gatherings I mentioned. And we also see that ergonomic and comfortable furniture is obviously really important. It's important for everyday life, honestly, but I can just imagine how somebody, if they're really entranced or just focused on their game, they might sit for a really long time. So it's really important that those chairs are not only adjustable, but really comfortable, because we know that not one person is not built the same from another. Okay, so how did we get started? Well, we kind of started with a blank slate. We had no square footage parameters, no size or shape of a room we had to design, which is kind of unheard of, really. Our projects, we have sort of parameters we have to work within. So we started with something simple, just bubble diagrams. We thought about the types of zones that we wanted to provide within this space, and just thinking about how different zones allow people choice of where they want to go, where they feel the most comfortable. So the first bubble diagram on the right is kind of simple. We started with maybe an idea of entering in onto some small group areas. We thought about people that may want some more individual time, maybe just one-on-one, kind of like the image that we just saw with everyone focused, one person per screen. And then we really thought about how we wanted for this esports facility to also kind of act as like a community room. We see community rooms being added to a lot of education projects, and so we think that could be a really prevalent part of this space. It could really be like the heartbeat. So the second bubble diagram is where we introduce the idea of BOD, which is bring your own device. And this might be some place where if you're thinking about this facility within a larger space, maybe this isn't a public library and somebody is just walking by, they want to sort of just stop in the bring your own device area, sit for a couple minutes and then head out. So we kind of started playing around with adding this in. We thought that having the community room right off of the entrance would really draw people into the esports facility, and that might be really exciting as well. Ultimately, we ended up with sort of a hybrid of option one, I would say. Just thinking about kind of rearranging the spaces a little bit, we moved that bring your own device zone down off the entrance. Again, kind of thinking about people coming in and out for a shorter amount of time. But we knew that we really wanted the community area to be a big portion within this space. So the next slide shows our floor plan, our final floor plan with those zones sort of applied. So we enter on the southwest corner of the space. The bring your own device area is just to the right with some lounge pieces there. Within the small group area, we've got kind of a combination of open type tables with a couple of chairs and monitors. To the north part of the plan is the individual space. And so these are dedicated rooms, but they also have some transparency through the door and with some glass within the wall. So that way, whoever goes in there still feels kind of connected to what's happening out in the larger space. And then you can see we have a variety of seating types and configurations of the furniture within the community zone. And this is where we really started to look at what the 6 Thrive principles are that we're talking about this week during the conference. And we examined how we could apply them into this setting. So I'll touch on probably just the 3 that are in bold. And I think the one that we struggled with a little bit is the sort of spiritual and mindful connection that can happen in this room. I think it can definitely happen in the individual enclosed rooms, but I think thinking in the larger picture, there's probably other spaces within the larger space that can really facilitate this principle a lot better than what we're doing in this plan. So taking a little bit closer look at independence and sort of psychological development and how it can be impacted in this space, we understand that with psychological development, this is when identity is formed. And so we really wanted to create a space where kids could thrive in an environment that gave them structure, but also allowed them to sort of create their own experience and explore. We see that a lot in a lot of our education work as well. So I think we address this just simply by creating the different zones within the space and really giving any individual person sort of a unique experience, and they can come in and just figure out which zone they feel most comfortable in with their friends. As far as the community and the moral development, we understand that this happens throughout the course of everybody's lifetime. So we wanted to create a space where like-minded kids can feel comfortable. They can build relationships and work on their social skills together. So I think the way that we address the community aspect is in some of our furniture, selections. Eye contact is really important in feeling engaged. And so MooreCo has really great tiered seating options that we played around with a lot in this area. So we feel like that's one way to address the community aspect here. And then with peer-to-peer and the intellectual principle, we understand that this oftentimes happens in small groups. And as our team was working on this project, we actually listened to a TED Talk. It's called Esports for Higher Education, and the speaker was Michael Aguilar. And one thing that he said that really stood out to me was that for video gamers, a lot of times they have peer-to-peer connection online. When they're playing a game, they have their headsets on and they're talking to the other players that are playing their game. They don't quite have as many face-to-face connections as other people. And he interviewed one of the gamers, and this person specifically said, you know, a video game is where I kind of feel at peace. I don't feel the anxieties of my normal life, and I can just be me. And so I think for us, thinking about the design of this space is really trying to create a space that these people feel comfortable in and that they can um, feel like they can have their relationships grow with one another. And I think we can do that through the integration of technology and furniture and definitely providing them with enough resources to connect with one another. So how did we start designing? As our floor plan was sort of taking shape, we were also looking at some contextual images for inspiration. And some of the things that really stood out to us as we were doing some research at the beginning was, wow, there's a lot of dynamic lighting. We really like the bold neon colors. We can see in some of the precedent images that there's a mixture of sort of individual settings and group-based settings. And so we really started to understand how we could utilize furniture to really give users a choice within the space. With our finish palette, we knew that we wanted to do something dynamic in the floor and the ceiling, and I think you guys will see that here in a couple of slides on our finished renderings. Um, you know, we wanted to focus on having a nice warm color palette, so we have some sort of warmer pink colors here. The wood tone is coming in through some cabinetry in the community zone. You know, we were thinking maybe there's going to be a gaming tournament, or maybe somebody's going to stream themselves playing a video game. Maybe there would be sort of a catered event for that. So we have thought about sort of that community aspect and how people kind of tend to gather around food as well. With the furniture, so we started looking at MooreCo's furniture lines and really felt like we had a lot of great options as far as how we could configure the furniture in the design. So we looked at the ACT tables, I think I'm pronouncing that right, for the small group and the community areas. There's lots of different shapes and sizes to choose from. Down on the bottom left, you see the Cocoon media space. We really liked this application because not only is it integrating technology into the furniture, but you can see that there's a couple of options for seating or gathering. You can either sit on the lounge piece, or if you kind of want to come and go, you can stand behind the countertop behind the lounge piece. So this is really versatile. You can host sort of a smaller group, or it can host sort of a larger group as well. And then the Opti chair, this is over on the right. This is what's going to be probably the most ergonomic chair that MooreCo has for this type of setting. It has a lot of adjustments. It allows for proper posture, good circulation and movement, and it has a pretty good techie look to it as well. So I think it really fits the environment that we're trying to create here. You go to the next slide. Okay, so some of the more lounge type pieces that we looked at, we have the elevated steps, which is the tiered seating on the left. We really liked this sort of auditorium feel that it gives. You can just kind of imagine a lot of kids sitting on all the different levels. People can absolutely be standing behind it as well, but we feel like this can be reconfigured and also be really flexible for the space. The beanies, the orange sort of beanbag chair on the bottom left there. This is an outdoor piece, but we absolutely thought it would be fun to bring it in because this might be really fun to put in that bring your own device area, right? Where people are just kind of popping in for a little bit. throw their bag down, pull their device out of it, and they start playing. So thought that this would be really fun. We're seeing these types of products being specified on a lot of education projects now anyways. And then the dot rocking stool. So this is the stool sort of on the bottom right there that looks like it's moving. We see a lot of sort of movement pieces in education. So if you think back to school, maybe there was that one person that was always kind of bouncing their leg. And so we've learned that some people focus through movement, right? Other people can really sit still and focus on what they're listening to, but other people need to move a little bit. So we liked the idea of including this within the space just for those types of users that might need a little bit more movement within their environment. And then one other thing that we're kind of notating under all the finishes here is how they're able to be cleaned, whether it's bleach cleanable, mixture, or machine washable. This is something that we typically do when we specify furniture, but especially after the year that we had last year with COVID, I think people are sort of timid maybe and hesitant. I'll speak for myself and say that I am going into sort of community type spaces, just wondering about how clean are they really. So we've made sure to address that with the finishes that we're showing because these can absolutely be cleaned very thoroughly. Okay, so we will move on to our renderings here. So we have a couple of views of our community room, and I have a key plan on the bottom right here to sort of orient you on where we are within our space. So we're in the southeast corner of our space, and you can see just the different types of furniture that we're showing. So on the left hand side here, we have those elevated steps. Sort of in the middle there, we have those dot rocking stools, and further in the back is part of the Cocoon Media Space Lounge. Um, with the finishes, you can see how on the floor, and if you look up to the ceiling, there's a direct correlation between the carpet pattern and what's happening with the lights and sort of the positive and negative spaces that we created with the ceiling planes. And ideally, our hope would be that we would specify LED color changing lights here as well. So it can kind of create much more of a gaming environment. That's why the walls are kind of a blank canvas to really allow this space to be sort of fine-tuned to what's going on within the space as a whole. So the next view is kind of just in the opposite corner. So this is the area we were just looking at, and we're looking towards the entrance here. You can see it off in the distance just behind this girl that's in front of us here. This is that media space lounge that has the technology integrated into the table. Again, something that we think would be really good to facilitate different sizes of groups. Over to the far right there with sort of the wood tone on the tables, that's going to be more of the small group area. So just a simple table with a couple of monitors and chairs for people to determine, do they want to be in a small like 1 to 2 person group, or they can go and be in up to a 4-person group over there. And finally, our last rendering here is sort of in the middle of our space. So we've walked through the entrance, we've walked through the small group space, and this is what we see. We see the community space, really what we want to be the heart and the pulse within this space. And I think you can see here how we have a lot of different lounge options, a lot of tiered seating to sort of create a lot of opportunities for different sized groups, but still eye contact is kind of at the front of mind there. Over off to the side, the right side, excuse me, is going to be some more of the small group area. And again, you can see from the floor to the ceiling planes just how we're picking up some of those linear lines and with the flooring pattern there. So, in closing, I think that we are going to be seeing a lot more esports projects in the future, especially in higher ed projects and K through 12 environments as well. And so I think it's important as designers or furniture specifiers and manufacturers for us to keep in mind that we aren't just designing beautiful spaces. Of course, we want them to be beautiful, but there are a lot of hurdles that we have to get through and learn when we're young to get to be an adult, right? And even when we're adults, we're still learning. So I almost think that we need to sort of shift our focus a little bit on creating spaces that allow students to thrive throughout their lifetime. So, Polly, I think I went through that a little fast, but I thank you for letting me be here today and to present our design. If anybody has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Alexa. You did such a wonderful job, and we were kind of chatting behind the scenes here. We absolutely loved how you and your team took the Thrive philosophy and incorporated it into the room and took the individual aspects of community, of comfort, of engagement. I mean, I couldn't think about the story better said, especially through the filter of designers like yourself. So it's such a joy to see that. We do have a couple of questions,
Okay.
and most is going to be maybe perceptions on your side and what you see on the field. One of them is tied into, you mentioned how some of the kids felt their anxiety decrease by this esports, which I agree. I mean, it is so new and so different to everything that we have seen in terms of the traditional education, which we're breaking. We're like, whatever makes kids be their best, which you also said, and let's provide them the tools. So can you develop a little bit more about that? Is there anything particular about the gaming experience that's bringing the anxiety? Is it that they feel like they have their own space or their voice is heard or?
I wonder if it's just feeling like you fit in with a group of people, honestly. I know just maybe from my own personal anxieties when I get nervous or when I'm worried about what people's opinions are of me, that's kind of when I tend to get a little anxious, right? And I think that's kind of a natural human response. So I wonder if that is why some of these students have that anxiety and maybe they feel like they can just be themselves. Sometimes with video games, you kind of create your own avatar. So I wonder if it's like they create themselves who they wish they could be or something along that lines, just so that they feel confident within their game. Um, I haven't really done enough research or interviewed enough students to know exactly if that might be what they're thinking, but that would be my first guess.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for letting us know that. What do you enjoy about creating esports spaces, or even if it's not esports, like what do you enjoy the most when you're designing learning environments?
Oh, absolutely connecting with the user groups. We do a lot, like I mentioned kind of at the beginning, we do a lot of student design charrettes. So there's one project in particular I'm thinking of. We invited the fourth and fifth graders of this elementary school to design their own library and to design their own playground. And just being a fly on the wall and listening to them and use their imagination. And they were so thoughtful. They thought about putting a yoga pad on the playground for their teachers so they had a place to relax. Like, how nice is that for them to think about their teachers that they're with all day? But that's absolutely my favorite part of my job is getting to um, connect with definitely the user groups that use our space. And I think for this project and for esports, um, It's important to remember that not one solution fits every campus, right? So it's really important for us to ask questions and to listen, because with every project, we always get different types of answers. So listening is such a useful tool during the design process.
Thank you. We have another one that says, do you envision every school or more schools having esports rooms in the near future?
I think that's absolutely a possibility. A lot of the campuses that we're building right now have some, well, I want to say majority of them have some sort of a STEM component. So science, technology, engineering, and math. We see a lot of maker spaces. These are spaces that have just a lot of different types of connections, or they support project-based learning. So I definitely think that maybe esports is kind of a gap that we're seeing that exists right now, and maybe bringing more attention to it, including it within some of our project designs might actually help sort of fill this gap for this unique user group of students.
Thank you. That's a really sweet answer. So here's another question. It says, of all the, you were very exposed in depth into the MooreCo family of product solutions. And as you know, we are very broad. We go from wall to wall in every room. But in your opinion, what areas should MooreCo focus on in product development? What solutions would you think of?
Oh gosh. Well, I think technology and connectivity is like the way of the future. So I think any sort of adaptability that could happen, like integrating technology into anything that you guys do in the future, will absolutely be considered when people are looking at specifying furniture.
Excellent. We'll keep developing that one. All right, I think that concludes the questions, and I want to thank you again so much. You and the team, you did such a lovely job. I really, really appreciated how you guys tied in all the aspects of Thrive. That's really the core of it, is to put all of those, not just in the esports, but really in every aspect of future design. So thank you so much for doing that and sharing the lovely job with us. This concludes our third day. Tomorrow we're kicking off at 9 a.m. with a session on socio-emotional development. So if you're listening, please join us tomorrow if you have a chance. If not, every session is recorded, so they'll be available for download along with the presentations. And again, Alexa, thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us today. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great evening.